Derrick, so good of you to join us, and finally, we know who's coming to San Antonio. We have the Texas Longhorns and the 11th ranked Utah Utes. A fantastic matchup on New Year's Eve, and just the fact that we know who's coming is...
We finally answered the question, right?
Exactly. We've been asking questions and playing out scenarios the last several weeks, but now we know it's set, and you had a very large role in making this decision. Walk us through all the factors that went into bringing the Utes and the Longhorns to San Antonio.
Absolutely. Great question. I'll try to give you a short answer to that question. But really, it's, for the week leading up to it, we have our team selection committee. So you kind of meet the previous Monday, figure out you're going to championship games, obviously Big 12 and Pac 12 championship game. And then not only are those games going to impact you, but others, SEC championship, Big 10 championship, and the winners and losers in the final CFP poll. So literally, we could watch all those games and have a chance to attend them. Come back, and then on Sunday morning, we're watching the television shows like everybody else. So 11:15, you watch and see who's in the top 4. 2 o'clock, you see the top 25. And in that case, we're really looking to see, does Utah stay in the top 10, possibly in the Cotton Bowl, or not? And then when we saw the poll, then basically we knew that our choice was going to be, Utah and Texas. But obviously we had choices, Utah, USC from that perspective, Texas, or, Texas versus Kansas State or Oklahoma State or Iowa State. So lots of options, lots of choices. Played the scenario games ourselves. Ultimately, the committee got together and unanimously agreed that this was the right matchup to put together for this year in the Valero Alamo Bowl.
If you had to put your finger on the biggest factor that ultimately helped make this decision, what would you say was the deciding factor?
Well, I think, on the Pac-12 side, just looking at 11-2, number 11 ranked, Utah teams, 2-time Southern Division champion, literally playing for a chance to be in the semifinals, had a great year. Probably didn't play their best game, obviously, in the Pac-12 championship game, but still one of the best teams in the country, so they definitely deserve to be here. Same thing on the other side. You looked at it. Technically, Texas finished third when you go by all the tiebreakers in the Big 12 this year. From the outside world, 8-4, 7-5, looked a lot of the same, and 5-4. But just thought the overall matchup, Texas versus Utah, they'd only played one time before. It seemed to work well from a tourism perspective, a travel perspective, a TV perspective, and I think it should be a competitive game as well.
As you mentioned, Utah deserved to be in this game, the runner-up of the Pac-12 traditionally going to the Valero Alamo Bowl, but you mentioned a team in there that Texas traditionally has a history with USC and the Trojans, and I know your family has a long history with USC.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of Longhorns fans would have loved a rematch of that 2006 BCS National Championship game. How much did the committee flirt with the idea of, hey, what about the Trojans?
Oh, absolutely. We had a chance to do that, and by contract we could. It's a one-game rule in conference standing, so they were right there. But just kind of at the end of the day, taking a look at it, seemed to make the right choice from that perspective to put the Utah-Texas game together, simply based on this season. Yes, the Texas, USC matchup is kind of a great scenario. They've had some great experiences here recently from that perspective. So, yeah, that would have a lot of sizzle to it. But putting that together this year didn't quite make sense from that perspective. It would have been a little bit unfair, in our opinion, to Utah, because they certainly were very deserving. Nothing against USC, but just in this scenario, we thought the Texas Utah matchup was the most deserving.
It's definitely very exciting. Two very good teams, and fans from Texas don't have to go very far. We'll talk about the advantages of that coming up later in the show. Derrick Fox, the president of the Valero Alamo Bowl, joining us again. And Derrick, a very familiar team coming to San Antonio in just over a week and a half. Texas Longhorns right up the street, and they've been here before. 3 times total, twice in the last decade. How much of an impact, how significant is it that the Longhorns are coming to San Antonio for this game?
Great. Yeah, it really is. They're, marquee program, obviously close proximity, so they certainly should bring a lot of fans to San Antonio. Yes, you could argue maybe they're not going to stay as long as some of the people maybe came in from Iowa State last year, but also hopefully they're going to bring more people. So that's kind of the trade-off. Maybe more people, fewer days, trade-off from that perspective. Great brand from the local economy, great brand from a television perspective. So they've done very well here in San Antonio every time they've been here, and hopefully they'll do very well this year and have a lot of fans in the house and try to fill us up.
You mentioned the fans with Washington State and also Iowa State coming last year to the Valero Alamo Bowl. There was over 60,000 fans for 2018. How many do you expect for this year?
Who knows? Well, we'll see. With 3 weeks to go, hopefully we'll get to that kind of number again this year. Everybody wants to assume, with Texas it's going to be a sellout. It's like, you still have to sell the tickets. You still have to get people there. And it's also, it's a different date. We talked about earlier, December 31st. We've had good response from that perspective, but now it's kind of like, all right, now it's here. The teams. It is New Year's Eve, and hopefully Chance will have a chance to do, kind of a 2-for-1. Enjoy the Valero Alamo Bowl and enjoy New Year's Eve downtown San Antonio and celebrate the New Year.
Speaking of the New Year, you mentioned how fans from Austin may not stay as long as our away teams or Utah fans necessarily, but with it being on New Year's Eve, how do you expect the impact on the economy and just the city throughout that holiday week?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about a $35 to $40 million probably direct economic impact to San Antonio. Again, it differs each year based on, last year 2 teams from out of state, this time 1 team from out of state, but still, it's significant. And when you look back in the history of the bowl, Christmas to New Year's used to be the slowest tourism week of the year. Matter of fact, they drained the Riverwalk at that point in time. So when we got here and created the bowl game, obviously we had a chance to bring 30,000 plus out of town people to San Antonio, and basically your keynote address is televised to some 7 million people on ESPN. So it works out great, and people have a chance to really enjoy the Riverwalk and all the other festivities that go around. Besides just a bowl game, we wanted to participate in that in our events, but also they want to do some other things and have some fun time too.
So what you're saying is it's going to be one big, long party all week long for the Valero Alamo Bowl,
it's
right?
kind of a New Year's fiesta.
Exactly. I love that. New Year's fiesta taking place on New Year's Eve, Utah against Texas. Thank you so much, Derrick.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
For tickets to this year's Valero Alamo Bowl, visit alamobowl.com/tickets. The game is set for New Year's Eve at 6:30.